what's up, YouTube, and welcome to my channel, Ask Jimmy Smith. Today, I am extremely excited to be able to bring on Chandler Bolt, who actually started self-publishing school, as well as now currently owns selfpublishing.com. Now, Chandler and I have known each other for over 10 years now. Back in college, we both went through a program called Student Painters, and I actually have followed his stuff online since then and went through his programs of self-publishing school. And actually, that is how I wrote my book, Side Hustle to Full-Time Income, and launched it, was using his trainings, his courses, etc. through there. And now, since he recently got and acquired selfpublishing.com, I reached out to him and his team to see if I could bring him on this channel to provide value to you for how you can write books and grow your income utilizing that. He actually has a free offer for anybody that wants his physical copied book of Published. You can go to publishedbook.com/Ask Jimmy, and you get a free copy totally shipped to you. I actually have a physical copy. I'm not in my normal office setting, otherwise I'd show it to you. Helped me tremendously. So make sure to head over to publishedbook.com/Ask Jimmy. But without further ado, let's get into the conversation with Chandler, where we talk about publishing your own book, how you can apply it to your Amazon and e-commerce businesses, what are some of the roadblocks there, as well as at the end, ask him a little bit more about ChatGPT and artificial intelligence from the self-publishing industry, just because I selfishly wanted to know his opinion on it. So it was a great conversation. Let's go ahead and get into the interview with Chandler. Hey, Chandler, thank you so much for hopping on here with me, man. I'm really excited to catch up with you since our Student Painters days, probably about a decade ago now, and learn more about self-publishing, how people can utilize some of the things that you do to grow their business.
I'm excited for this, man. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, it's awesome. So actually, for a lot of people that may or may not know, on this channel, I talk quite a bit about my book, Side Hustle to Full-Time Income. And I went through all of your stuff, Chandler, to learn how to self-publish it, to write it in a pretty quick amount of time, outline it, all of that stuff. So super excited to bring some of your content to my audience. And first, I kind of gave you a little bit of a rundown of the Amazon seller community that follows me, but why would you say that anyone in my audience who sells on Amazon should write a book?
Yeah, well, I mean, I could think of two or three things. I mean, number one, I think the book is the best thing that you can do to leverage your impact, to grow your income, and to grow your business if you have one. I've done it. We've helped about 7,000 people publish in the last 8 years. So we do this stuff all day, every day. So that's the first piece. The second piece is, if you are already running a business on Amazon, you know the business of Amazon, and this is a physical product, right? It's just a different form of physical product. And so I think where specifically for this audience, where this can tie in is if you have certain white label stuff that you're doing or wholesaling or anything like that. And if it's in a product category, you can create books around that product category. And then you can use bundling, you can use cross-selling, you can use stuff like that to help the products sell the books sell the products, and kind of create a little bit of an ecosystem there inside of Amazon. So those are kind of the two main things that I would say, like, specific to this industry. And I mean, I think everyone should write a book, even if you're just writing it for your kids or grandkids to read down the road. But it can be very lucrative if you do it the right way.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I guess I probably should have started with this question too, because I know, as I briefly mentioned, that we went through a program together a while back in college. And so I'm just curious, because I haven't talked to you too much, but I followed your story, but some people in my audience might not know it. How did you come up with some of the ideas for self-publishing and starting to create content around this? Because I've seen tons of success stories come from your content, myself being one of them. But how'd you come up with this idea, and how's it grown from there?
Yeah, I would say, I'm a C-level English student and a college dropout with ADHD who ended up writing books. And I wrote and published a couple of books when I dropped out about my experience in Student Painters, which we can circle back to if you want. But about that experience in running my first six-figure company while also being a full-time college student. And those books did well. People said, "Hey, how are you doing this?" And so then that kind of led to the first cohort of teaching a group of people how to do it. And then they did pretty well. And so then we said, hold up, this is actually can be really helpful for people. So let's double down on it. So that's what ended up sparking self-publishing school. But then a lot of the stuff that we learned from student painters, I mean, we've just applied with helping people write and publish books. I mean, if you can get an 18-year-old, 19-year-old, 20-year-old, whatever, to run a 6-figure house painting business who's never painted a house, there's a lot of good accountability systems and mechanisms that just you can translate into a lot of things. And so we've translated a lot of those concepts and a lot of the stuff that I learned. I mean, ultimately doing student painters is what gave me the confidence to drop out of school, because I realized I'm learning how to run a business from professors who have never ran businesses. Mm-hmm. That is idiotic. And meanwhile, I'm learning all this from student painters, right? And so I'm a big advocate for student painters. I think it's the best thing I've ever done in my life. It's Navy SEALs Hell Week, but for business in 7 months. Yeah. And it was awesome. I mean, got to meet you and got to meet a lot of awesome people and just learn so much. And that's really what gave me a lot of the confidence and a lot of the skill sets to ultimately start self-publishing school and now selfpublishing.com.
Yeah, it's so cool. And I saw that's actually what sparked this, me reaching out to you to bring you on the channel, is just because I saw that you purchased selfpublishing.com. So how's that transition been going for you? Because that's a pretty big name website, and I've seen some really cool changes happen on your website. So how's that process been going?
Yeah, it's been good, man. It's a little known fact is that we actually purchased it, or I actually purchased it back in 2019. And then we started it as a site, and then we kind of kept growing it. And we just thought, hey, we're going to use this as a customer acquisition channel for self-publishing school. And it kept growing and growing and growing to the point where, you know, it was bringing in $50,000 to $150,000 a month in sales for self-publishing school. And then finally, one day we said, you know what, the business has evolved. So education has always been at the core of what we do. But as we evolved, it became a part of what we do and not all of what we do. Like we have a bunch of services and there's done for you stuff. And now we do book covers, formatting, like all of this kind of final mile publishing for people to help them. You know, people are having to spend thousands of dollars on it anyway and a bunch of time. So why not just us do it for them? And so for years, we kind of shied away from that model and we said, hey, we're an education company. There's not as much margin in that and all that stuff. But then we finally said, all right, we just need to figure out how to solve this, because people were asking for it for a long time. It's like, I don't want to hire these 6 people. I just want you to do it. Can you just do it? And so when we launched the services arm, and then that started picking up a lot of steam. And so then finally we said, all right, we're more than just a school. And some of our best authors were like, hey, I don't really resonate with the whole student thing. I'm an author. And so then we said, hold up, well, maybe we should rebrand the company as selfpublishing.com, because we want to own the publishing space, but starting with self-publishing. And we want to put the power back in the hands of authors and help people keep their rights and royalties, like all those things that we really believe in. And so we said, hey, let's just rebrand the company, and we can keep self-publishing school as the education arm, but now we're selfpublishing.com. And hopefully when people think, hey, I'm thinking about self-publishing a book, well, selfpublishing.com. I mean, it just, we got the domain.
Yeah.
And so that's got to mean something. So that was kind of the why behind it, but it's gone really well.
Yeah, it's amazing. And one thing too that took me a while, I remember whenever I first started hearing you talk about some of this stuff, it took me a while to really get on board with, oh, I can actually be an author and like I can make money from this stuff without having to go to a publisher and all of that. So can you kind of, I guess, go through some of those concerns that people have with becoming an author when maybe they don't feel like they're qualified, or even the concerns of self-publishing versus the old traditional publishing?
Yeah. So I think a lot of people, they think, who am I to write a book? I'm not a good writer, or I don't have time. Like the timing isn't right. Those are the big things that keep people from getting started. And I think I'm a testament to all of those things. As you know, I wasn't good at writing and I didn't like doing it. The whole English, college dropout, ADHD, like that whole thing. But then fast forward to my most recent book published, I went from 0 to published with that book in 105 days while running a multi-7-figure company. Yeah. And so that was an example of like, all right, if you're running a business and you don't have time, here's how you do it. And I wanted to walk the walk there. And so I think if someone's thinking about doing it, it's possible. It's going to take some time, and it's going to be a short-term investment for sure. You're going to have to sacrifice. You're going to have to probably wake up early. if that's when you write well, and put aside the time, but you're going to create an asset that will be here for a long time. And it'll grow your impact, it'll grow your income, and it'll grow your business if you do it correctly. And years from now, even if it sells 100 copies in a month, well, that's a couple $100 in mailbox money that's coming from that book, right? And so you're creating this asset. And then to speak to your question on self-publishing versus traditional publishing, I mean, the publishing landscape has just changed. Self-publishing used to be the backup plan. It was like the thing you only did if you couldn't get a publishing deal, right? It's like, oh man, I guess I'll self-publish like a loser. But now it's really becoming the preferred option for most authors, because you keep most of the royalties. You own the rights and royalties. Distribution is largely through Amazon. 70% of all books sold are sold on Amazon and other online retailers. And publishing companies don't market your book, right? And so why would you work with a publishing company? They're going to take the rights and royalties. Unless you have a massive audience and they can give you a big check in advance, that's the only time where I'll tell people, hey, you should consider that and kind of weigh your options. But even then, you might not want to, and especially if they're not willing to do that, well, then you should self-publish, and that's really the best option for 99.9% of people watching or listening to this.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually have a friend that publishes books through traditional publishing, but he's had a few books that he's had deals to get published, and then they just choose not to publish it, and they own the rights. Like, he can't self-publish it anymore. So I've even seen those headaches on that side of things too. And so he's chosen to self-publish certain books since then. But yeah, it's a fairly simple process, I think. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of work to get the book done. I've actually done 2 editions of mine. I went back through all of the content in self-publishing school so that I could redo the 2nd edition better and make better updates. And that actually helped tremendously. And I think since 2020, whenever I published the first version, I've made consistently like $300 to $700 a month with that and the audiobook. It's not a ton, but it's, consistently in the top 10 of its subcategory. And so it's pretty cool to see what the book has continued to do, even though I've written it basically once and redid a couple of things in the 2nd edition. So
that's cool, man. That's you think about it, it's like, all right, well, cool. That's like probably your electricity bill and maybe even your car payment if you got a low one. It's just like, all right, it's not making you rich, but it's keeping the lights on.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and the thing too with the book, it's not just the book royalties that I care as much about. It's how do I get people to come to the YouTube channel and do the other things, right? It's more about the impact of that.
Turning the book into business. And that's where I think is the most powerful thing. And that's what I think about is how do I use a book to get more leads, sales, and referrals? Right? And then to your point, there's the impact piece, which is like, all right, cool. There's people that can't afford to work with me or work with us. Cool. Here's the book, read the book. It'll be really helpful for you. But then for those people who can, they say, hey, this book's really helpful. I'd love to just work with you. And so how do you strategically use the book to get more leads, sales, and referrals for your business? I think that's where a lot of people watching or listening, like that's where the real upside, because this book published, 1st edition, has done millions of dollars in sales for self-publishing school. And this is why I did the same thing as you. I'm a big believer in that 2nd edition, or at a minimum relaunching the book. And so that's why I did this 2nd edition, is because I feel like it'll bring in tens of millions of dollars in sales over the next decade. And I wanted it to be just the definitive thing that I can point to and that we can point to. And we just say, hey, this is the book. And so I love that you mentioned that.
Yeah. And I know that I mentioned this in the intro, but if anybody skipped over the intro to get to the content here, you did provide a link for the audience here. It's publishedbook.com/ask Jimmy, and people can get a free copy of Published, right? And is that the ebook version, or is that they could get the paperback as well? I can't remember.
Yeah. So if you're in the US, we'll ship you the paperback physical version. If you're outside of the US, you can still fill out that same form, and should automatically on the back end, we'll just say, if you're outside the US, we'll just give you all the digital versions. So we'll give you the ebook and audiobook and all that stuff. But if you're in the US, we'll actually ship you a physical copy. You don't have to pay anything.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. And actually, Chandler, to be honest, whenever I was rewriting this one, I took the physical version that I got for free from you from the published book, and I just like went through it and took some of those ideas and put it in here. So it was just looking at the thing that you did helped my book
That's
to
cool.
there.
I
So
love that.
yeah, it's such a great book, man. But I know that I did mention too for my audience, I think that there's a couple things that they can do. Maybe you aren't a course or content creator like myself, but if you've got an Amazon business, there's a mentor of mine named Jim Cockrum, who most of my audience might know. He talks about having a book as being a very good, it's better than a business card, right? And so if you're doing wholesale on Amazon FBA, you can reach out to brands and say, hey, I've actually written a book on how to sell on Amazon for brands. That could be a great lead in for going to these brands and getting exclusive deals and working with them. So don't just discount books if you aren't a content creator, if you aren't trying to sell, any type of public speaking or anything. You can use it for so many different things, and I think that that's the power behind it. Chandler, what are your thoughts? Because there may be many people in my audience too that have 1,000 ideas for books. How do you kind of decide what idea that they should write about if they've got too many?
I'll answer that, and I'll also mention the thing that you just said about the business card. Like, a lot of people say a book is the new business card, and kind of like you said, I think a book is better than a business card, because when you give someone a business card, they're probably going to throw it away within 24 hours. Like, let's just be honest, right? But if you give them a book, they keep that book. It's in their home or in their office, and every time they see it, they think of you. And so if you were in any sort of brick and mortar business, or even online business, it's how do you get in front of your target customers, your existing customers, so they stay top of mind? A book. And so I'm very much subscribed to that philosophy, where we just want to paint the earth with copies of published. And whenever I'm speaking somewhere or going to any networking event or whatever, it's just to answer your question on what do you do if you have too many ideas? I would say, really ask 3 questions. Now, I'll back up a second. We only have 2 rules when we're working with people at selfpublishing.com. Rule number 1 is you can't edit while you write. And so if you're listening to this or watching this right now, write that down and put it on a sticky somewhere where you can see it. Do not edit while you write. It's really important. We all know someone who has 5 perfectly written chapters in their unfinished book, right? And so don't edit while you write. But then rule number 2 is you can't write more than 1 book at a time. And so that's where it comes to exactly your question is, if you got too many ideas, you got to narrow in on one idea and write that one idea first. And you really ask 3 questions. So number 1, which one can I finish the fastest? So you have the most content or life experience on this topic. Number 2, which one am I most likely to finish? So not only are you going to get started, but you're going to take this thing all the way to the finish line. And then number 3, which one's going to make me happy? Like, which one am I going to enjoy writing? And so I ask those 3 questions, and I would encourage you, if you're in that camp of like, oh man, I've got like 5 different books I could write. First off, that's a great problem to have. But if you are in that spot, ask those questions, and that'll help you narrow in on which one to write first.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great idea too. And I think if you do have 5 and you start with the one that you like the most, then once you get that done, you've got all the difficult stuff. Like, you've learned that process. You can go back to some of the ones that might not be as exciting for you to write and be more excited about them because you already know what the process is like. So I really like those 3 questions. I think that helps tremendously. What is something that you suggest then for people that don't feel like they have enough time to write one, right? Because I think that there's plenty of excuses that can come up from writing a book, whether it's, hey, I've got too many ideas, hey, I don't have enough ideas, and I don't have enough time. What are some of your thoughts for how to write it quickly? Because I know that you have training on that in the self-publishing school, and so that helped me tremendously. But what are some quick thoughts there?
Yeah, so I would say, I mean, if you don't think you've got enough time, or hey, like, how do I figure out how to write this book in the time that I do have? We've got we break down the process pretty simply. So if you're watching this, you can kind of see this excerpt from my book, right? So there's 8 milestones going from blank page to published. The first 4 are what's called the MORE writing method. And so MORE is an acronym. It stands for mind map, outline, rough draft, editing. And so that's my recommendation for folks, is follow that MORE writing method. You'll be able to write a better book faster than you think. And starts with that mind map. So mind map everything you can think of on this topic for your book. That's what I've encouraged you. Take 15 minutes as soon as you're done watching this or listening to this. Take that 15 minutes, write out your mind map, and then use that to start to create the outline that you'll use to write the rough draft. And that's where, if you have a good outline, so you do the mind map and you start to group themes of ideas, and now, all right, now you've got a good outline. Well, then you use that outline to write the book. And so that's where, we've had people get a draft done in as little as a weekend, or speak the book even. And so whether you're speaking or writing a draft, you can do it in a pretty short time. Or if you just say, hey, I can commit to 1,000 words a day. So maybe that's an hour, maybe that's 2 hours a day. 1,000 words a day in 30 days is 30,000 words. That's most of the length of a book. So it can be done faster than you think. And the more writing method will help accelerate the process.
Yeah, I love that. It's I've actually used that method in other things too, not just for writing the book, but I've used it for different articles or even planning out course content for different things. I've brainstormed it in a similar way. So it's actually helped me quite a bit in different things. So yeah, I really appreciate that. I think there's a couple really amazing action items for people just right away in this video, right? Because they can come in here, they can work on their different book ideas. They can then start with that more writing method to get going. They've got the free option for your book that you'd offered to the audience, which the link is below. And then the last thing I think that most people get scared of is, okay, Chandler, I've written a book, I've done all these things. How is it that I can even get people to buy this, right? Nobody knows me. I don't have an audience like maybe you, Chandler, do, or like Jimmy does, right? How can I get people to buy this book? So what are some of your suggestions there?
There's a lot of things that you can do, but it really comes down to what I call the launch triangle. And so the launch triangle, there's 3 points in the triangle, obviously. And one is creating a launch team. Number 2 is getting reviews. And number 3 is running promotions, right? The first two kind of go hand in hand. A launch team is a small group of people who support you or the topic of your book. It could be 50 people, maybe more, maybe less. And they get a free digital copy of the book ahead of time. So Amazon sellers think very similarly to how you're launching on Amazon, right? But they get a free copy of the book ahead of time. They leave a review on day one. Now all of a sudden you're launching with momentum. So that's the launch team and getting reviews. And then the third piece is promotions. And that can be kind of an accordion based on your time, your budget, and how much energy you want to put into this. So it kind of ranges from what I would call the MVP launch, which is the minimum viable product launch. And then you've got more of a traditional launch, which would be like any traditionally published book that you've seen kind of follows more of that model. And so I lay both of those things out in the book. There's chapters on both of them, but it's really like, okay, am I going to do a book tour? Am I going to do podcast interviews? Am I going to do ads? Am I going to what are those promotions that I want to run as part of the launch, and how much am I doing there? And so those are kind of the 3 core elements of launching the book successfully. And you can do it even if you don't have an audience. My first book, I was 19 years old and I had no audience and no email subscribers and no any of that stuff. But the book is what helped build a lot of the email lists and ultimately the business and all that by taking some focus, promotions and strategies similar to how you would launch an Amazon product.
Yeah, that's perfect. I know the launch group is what helped me the most, is just having a core group of people that you could actually write the book with, right? Give them updates, that kind of a thing throughout the process. And then they were excited to help at that time. So that was really fun for me. That's the way that I ended up doing it. But I also had some other people that were able to promote it for me too. So it was kind of a hybrid of both those things for anybody that's curious how I did it. But yeah, that helped tremendously in getting the book to where it was, and then continuing to get the success of having it continue to sell. But if somebody on here is just, they want to write the book as a passion project, they want to write it not because they care about it selling a ton, but because they want to use it as a lead for businesses, for getting wholesale accounts or something else, depending on the realm of your business, you don't have to worry about some of these things either. So just keep that in mind. There's so many different options if you want to write a book that you can utilize it for. And so I'm excited for that. I've got 2 remaining questions for you, Chandler. One's a little bit fun at the end, just because it's my own interest. But this question, before we get to that, what are you most excited about with the self-publishing industry moving forward over the next few years, as you've seen kind of the growth of online commerce? Have you seen the growth of Amazon? Have you seen the growth of a lot of different industries? What are you most excited about?
This is going to sound a little self-serving, but like I'm most excited about what we're creating with selfpublishing.com. Like I think we're creating the future of publishing. There's kind of long been self-publishing and traditional publishing. And I think we're creating this beautiful middle ground, which is we can deliver a lot of the services at a similar quality like a traditional publishing company would, but then you keep the rights and royalty. And so I think we're creating the future of publishing. And I think a lot of people are waking up to self-publishing as a real option. And that's really exciting. I mean, I believe that books change lives. They change the lives of readers and of authors. And so we get to help people do both of those things, right? Publish books that change the lives of readers and change a lot of lives and through that process. So that's really fun for me. We're in scaling mode and the business has done well, and I don't have to keep working as hard as I'm working and keep doing it, but I love it. And so that's why I'm still working really hard and just scaling this thing, because I think there's a huge opportunity and I think we can help a lot of people in the process.
Yeah. And before I had another question that popped up because of what you said. Are there any trends specifically that you're seeing do well from an author standpoint, whether it's children's books or it's e-commerce helpful type books or cookbooks, or is it just kind of the whole landscape of book writing is still an ever growing and a huge opportunity no matter where you're at?
Yeah, I think audiobooks are big. They're higher priced, higher royalties, and audio is just growing as a platform. So I think there's still a lot of blue ocean there. So I think audiobooks are a big one. And I think also just in the space that we're in, kind of using a book to strategically grow your business. Like not a lot of people are still doing it well. And so there's just a huge opportunity there. But then there's also stuff like free plus shipping funnels that people keep saying like, oh, books are dead, or like, oh, free plus shipping funnel, like that was around like 5 years ago. Surely that doesn't work anymore. It's like, nope, books are still selling, people are still reading them, and free plus shipping funnels still work really, really well.
Yeah.
And so there's those things that I think are emerging and doing well.
Okay, awesome. All right, then my last question for you is just kind of a fun one, just because over the last few months, I've done videos on this topic and it's kind of exploded, in my opinion, out of nowhere. But what are your thoughts from the book publishing industry and also from a business standpoint, since you do so much online, about ChatGPT, artificial intelligence? Do you think that that's going to change anything? What are your thoughts, if you've looked into it at all? What are your thoughts on some of that?
Yeah, I think it's going to change a lot. I mean, full disclosure, I'm a minority owner in a company called Jasper, which is an AI and content creation company. So, but I've been kind of behind the scenes for years there. So Jasper's been doing stuff that like I think is revolutionary, and long before ChatGPT, like ChatGPT just kind of popularized it. But they've been doing a lot of the AI stuff for a long time. And so I think it's going to change a lot. I think, people are already using it to write books. They're not great yet. But like they're already doing it to do that. We're using it to help our authors come up with book titles. It can be really helpful there. You can use it for book descriptions, writing better book descriptions. Like there's a bunch of just very practical things that it can be used for to help authors either write books, sell more books, stuff like that. So I think it's going to change a lot, and a lot of written content. I think it's a lot of it's not there yet, but it is pretty exciting. It's kind of early stages, and yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. And actually, it's funny you mentioned Jasper, because that was one of the software companies that I mentioned in a video I did probably a month and a half or so ago about really cool AI technologies that people are using for success. So yeah. Jasper's one that I actually plan on looking into a lot more, because I've seen more and more people talk about it. And so that's exciting. I didn't know that you're minority owner.
It's a good tool. Yeah, it's a really good tool. And I think what Jasper does well is, because I mean, what people are realizing is like with these AI tools, they're only as good as the input that you give them. And so how do you do that in a structured way? So what Jasper does, and I think probably what a lot of companies are now starting to do and ripping off it and stuff like that, is I think they call them recipes, but it's like, all right, this is a blog post template. This is a titling template. So it's like, how do you input it in a way where it's actually going to spit out something useful for that specific purpose that you're using it? And so it's kind of a menu of options of like, oh, I want a social media post, or I want an email, or I want to, and instead of having to figure out like, how do I type this in a way where it's like, hey, ChatGPT, like I need an email and blah, blah, blah. It's fill in the blanks of like this topic, this voice or kind of narrative, and here's the recipe of like the thing that I'm creating. So that's what I think Jasper does really well. It's just, they're great guys too, and just good company. And so they're exploding right now.
That's awesome. Yeah. Well, it's super exciting. And I'm really looking forward to seeing where this goes over the next year from an AI perspective, and also seeing where selfpublishing.com and everything that you're doing goes, because there's so much opportunity out there. Writing a book has legitimately changed my life based off of everything that's come from it, from within the book. And so I'm super looking forward to seeing where everything can go from there. But Chandler, thank you so much, man, for being on here. It's been great catching up with you. Just as a reminder for everybody, if you missed this earlier, if you go to publishedbook.com/ask Jimmy, you can get a free copy of Chandler's book published, the physical version. And I have it, I own it, I went through it, and it's been great for my own book writing process. So yeah, thank you so much, Chandler, for that. Is there any place else that people should go to check you out, or check anything else out that you do besides selfpublishing.com?
That's the best thing. Publishedbook.com/ask Jimmy. Grab a copy of the book. If you want to chat with my team about how we can help with your book, go to selfpublishing.com/apply. You can book a call with the team there, and we'd be happy to help.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Chandler. Really appreciate it. If anybody has any comments or questions, please leave them below, and I'll see you on the next episode. Hey, I hope that you enjoyed that conversation with Chandler Bolt of selfpublishing.com and Self-Publishing School. It was great getting to catch up with him. I am pumped for the fact that he offered to give us a link for getting his book for free. And so you can actually go to publishedbook.com/ask Jimmy if you'd like to get the physical copy of his book that actually helped me write my own bestseller on Amazon called Side Hustle to Full-Time Income. His book and his courses helped me tremendously in that. So if you go to publishedbook.com/ask Jimmy, you can fill out the information. They'll send you the book for free. It's an excellent read, and I highly recommend going through it and following all of the homework assignments. But thank you so much for being here, for watching this interview with Chandler. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them below. Also, make sure to like and share and follow this channel for more, because I continue to add more stuff on Amazon, e-commerce, and side hustles, as well as ChatGPT, AI, and hopefully doing some more with self-publishing type book content, because I think that a lot of my audience resonates with that and wants to learn more about it. So excited for that content. But thank you so much for being here. I hope that you have a great rest of your day and a blessed rest of your week.